I'm not perfect, far from it. And I know that, but I keep trying. I get up and I keep trying, you know? And I think it's really important not to compare yourself to others, and to just continue to move forward in the direction that's right for you. And I've come to grips that sometimes I'll never be a multimillionaire, I'll never be this, I'll never be that, but that's okay. You know why? Because I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm doing exactly what I love to do. And I think if we could all just remember that, it's okay to fail. It's okay to not be the same as everyone else. Don't compare yourself to others. Follow your dream, your passion. I think that's the best advice that I could give.
Hi, my name is Zenka. I'm founder of LightNet, and my passion and purpose is to make the impossible possible. We are rounding up on almost the 100th interview. We have 3 more here with some incredibly special guests as we begin to work on the film, and we're going to be opening it up to 33 different hosts who are going to be interviewing their heroes that are living on purpose to gather even more inspiration for you guys around the world. Now, this person, Betsy Klein, is someone that just really moved me. Why? Because she's so confident and so humble and so effective. She has a nonprofit foundation called Plan B, which she spun up in order to protect wolves and wolf dogs. It's been incredible work. And as we know, nature often teaches us the most important lessons we're here to learn. She also lights up when she talks about Concierge Closet. And this is how I know her. It's an incredible consignment shop here in Sedona that's really tackling sustainable fashion in a whole new way. And as you'll find out in the interview, she's like, I don't sell clothes, I sell confidence. And it is with that purpose that she does everything so passionately and so intelligently and so effectively through all of her careers as consultants, as an entrepreneur, as a nonprofit founder. She really has something that I know you will also admire. Check her out.
I discovered my purpose actually quite long ago. When I was in high school, there was this girl that was getting picked on all the time. And I actually stuck up for her. I actually put myself between her and the bullies. And even though I knew I could potentially be getting hurt as well, I felt it was important that someone stand up for someone that no one else was. And that has carried through my entire life, whether it's people or my true passion, which would be wolves and wildlife. How this developed over the years is I feel like you see these things in the news or on social media, and you know that something just isn't right. And that's how I got involved with wolves. Is back in 2012, they were removed from the endangered species list in certain states. And there was so much propaganda and rhetoric around wolves in terms of what they actually are and how they contribute to the planet and the environment, and they have every right to be here as much as we do. And I just felt it was wrong. And so, not knowing anything about wolves, I decided to get involved. And through encouragement from my husband, we actually started a nonprofit, and we've done several things around that. Along the way, I've met many people and women, especially women, who finding their purpose, right? They found it through wolves, but in what other ways could other women find their purpose? And so I started becoming sort of this person to encourage women, especially, to find what it is that moves them. It could be children, it could be the environment, it could be domestic violence. Whatever that is, you're here to serve so that you feel fulfilled in what you're doing with your life. And so I sort of became this, not a coach or anything like that, but just this person who just started encouraging other women to do what moves them. So back in 2016, my husband decided I should start a nonprofit. And he calls me B. And so he called it the Plan B to save wolves. And so what we did was something that no one else was really doing. You may have a wolf dog over here that needs a home, right? And the home is over here. And between here and there, money is required to get that animal to safety. And so the sole purpose of our organization was actually to raise those funds to help get that animal to safety. At the same time, we were advocating for the wild wolf and other wildlife. And we started a campaign in the fall of 2018 where we decided we were going to end killing contests here in Arizona. And if you're not familiar with what those are, they really are just abhorrent. There's no way that that could be acceptable in any kind of evolved society. And I'm very proud that a handful of us decided that we were going to end this. In fact, it was so bad that when we talked to people about it, they actually didn't even know these things happened on our public lands. So I'm very proud to say that by the end of 2019, by then there was several people and groups and organizations in support of what we were doing, and we managed to get a rule passed in Arizona, the fourth state in the nation to do so, to end wildlife killing contests. At the same time, I was working on this rescue of wolf dogs. And wolf dogs are often misunderstood, often adopted and then surrendered to shelters because people don't know how to handle wolf dogs. And so we ended up working on one of the largest rescues, at least at the time, in wolf dog history. And we had to get it done in about 70 days, and we managed to rescue about 188 of them. But it came at a very great cost. Those types of things, they can pull on you, and that's where you really have to, if you have your purpose, you have to hold, that's what you have to hold close. You have to remember why you're doing these things. And I remember days where it was so trying that all I could do was, okay, I'm just going to work on the very first thing in front of me, and then I'm going to work on the very next thing in front of me. And that's how you rebuild your faith. That's how you remember your purpose. That's how your heart fills with love again. I'm even getting a little emotional remembering those times. But that's the type of strength that I want all people, especially women, to realize that they have, regardless of what it is that they're working on. So when I was very young, I loved fashion. I grew up in the smallest town in rural New Hampshire. I lived one field away from where my mother grew up in rural New Hampshire. And so I was very young and I got very interested in fashion. I like to say, I think it was about 10 years old when I started subscribing to Vogue magazine. And the reason why I did is, art comes in many forms. And some it's, the more traditional way we think of art, sculpture, paintings, pottery. But I would argue fashion is art. Cars are art. There's just some really beautiful things that can be done with fashion, the imagination, the creativity, and that is my art. And so I started subscribing to Vogue magazine, and because of where I live, the nearest mall was like 2 hours away. So here I am trying to make all these outfits that I see in the pages of Vogue when I was in junior high school. And I would wear these things to school, and all the girls would make fun of me. You know how teenage girls can be. And my mom would say, it doesn't matter, in a year they're all going to be wearing it too. And I'll never forget that. And so throughout my childhood, my very first job was retail in a boutique in Keene, New Hampshire. And then I put myself through college by working at JCPenney, if you can remember JCPenney. And then I sort of went in a completely different direction. I believe everything happens for a reason. But I do sometimes feel like I took the safe route. I went to business school, I went into marketing, I went into advertising. But I do believe all those things brought me full circle back to where I am today with Closet Concierge, which is my store, because I was able to say, okay, I now can do this, right? I now have all the background knowledge, the marketing expertise, the business expertise that I can do this. And it was something that I had always wanted to do. I actually was introduced to this store back in 2012. And I always said, if this ever comes up for sale, but I missed it twice because it was privately sold very quickly. But when it came up again in 2024, I jumped on the opportunity. And that way I can express my love for fashion through my values, right, of sustainability, being kind to the planet. Fashion is one of the greatest polluters in the planet, and by having this store, we help in a very small way reduce that. And it also links back to my wildlife and wolf advocacy because, again, in a very small way, I'm helping to protect their habitats and their environment by one less piece of clothing in a landfill. So since I've taken on the store, we most recently changed the name to Closet Concierge, which I feel more accurately reflects how I feel about the store and what we are offering here. I'd always tell my team, we're not selling clothes, we are selling confidence. Because women come in here, and if we can help you see you, or you feel like you've been seen, because then it comes out in what you're wearing. I'm not trying to change you. I'm trying to help you pull it out, what it is, so that when you put on something, you feel like you can take on the world, which directly relates to finding your purpose, right? Because it all comes down to courage and confidence. If you're a confident woman, you are non-stoppable, right? You can do anything. You're empowered, you're gorgeous, you're beautiful, your heart comes through. You can take on the day, and whatever that is to you, right? It doesn't have to be a CEO of a $500 million company. It could be a woman who helps rescue dogs, right? And so we sell confidence here. And through that, I like to try and show women the different ways that they can do this. So we've taken it up a notch here at the store. We now offer many services they didn't have in the past, like personal styling and personal shopping. But we also started doing a lot of events to show women there are so many ways you can have fun with fashion, right? With the fashion shows, and we have these workshops where we show women how they can wear their scarves, because I don't know about you, but I only knew one way to wear my scarf. And there's all different things that you can do. And even though we're in a small town here in Sedona, that doesn't mean style doesn't matter. If that's who you want to be and that's how you are and you want to reflect it in your style, then that's what we're here to help you do. The biggest struggle I faced in living my purpose in all of the aspects is I started them not knowing what I was doing. And I think in some ways that naivete actually contributed to the success because I didn't carry forward any baggage or, oh, this isn't going to work because I've tried this before type of thing. And I think that's why we were so effective in our wolf and wildlife advocacy. And I think that's why we're succeeding here too. Now, I never owned a store. I worked in one. But owning a store is very different than working in one. And all of the challenges that I have faced, I feel like me going with my gut and going with my feeling, drawing on the experiences, drawing on courage, right, that I've built up over the years, has helped me work through those things and help make the store even more successful. I'm a very transparent leader. We have team meetings and we talk about everything. I share everything with the staff because if they have the information they need, then they're empowered, then they're confident. They know what they're doing and they can help women even more effectively when they come through the door and help them find their courage and confidence. So I really think, in a way, me not having prior experience or knowledge in these areas has actually made me more successful in them, if that makes sense. So when I was very young, I loved fashion. I grew up in the smallest town in rural New Hampshire. I lived one field away from where my mother grew up in rural New Hampshire. And so I was very young and I got very interested in fashion. I like to say, I think it was about 10 years old when I started subscribing to Vogue magazine. And the reason why I did is, art comes in many forms. And some it's, the more traditional way we think of art, sculpture, paintings, pottery. But I would argue fashion is art. Cars are art. There's just some really beautiful things that can be done with fashion, the imagination, the creativity, and that is my art. And so I started subscribing to Vogue magazine, and because of where I live, the nearest mall was like 2 hours away. So here I am trying to make all these outfits that I see in the pages of Vogue when I was in junior high school. And I would wear these things to school, and all the girls would make fun of me. You know how teenage girls can be. And my mom would say, it doesn't matter, in a year they're all going to be wearing it too. And I'll never forget that. And so throughout my childhood, my very first job was retail in a boutique in Keene, New Hampshire. And then I put myself through college by working at J.C. Penney, if you can remember J.C. Penney. And then I sort of went in a completely different direction. I believe everything happens for a reason, but I do sometimes feel like I took the safe route. I went to business school, I went into marketing, I went into advertising, but I do believe all those things brought me full circle back to where I am today with Closet Concierge, which is my store, because I was able to say, okay, I now can do this. Right? I now have all the background knowledge, the marketing expertise, the business expertise that I can do this. And it was something that I had always wanted to do. I actually was introduced to this store back in 2012. And I always said, if this ever comes up for sale, but I missed it twice because it was privately sold very quickly. But when it came up again in 2024, I jumped on the opportunity. And that way I can express my love for fashion through my values, right, of sustainability, being kind to the planet. Fashion is one of the greatest polluters in the planet, and by having this store, we help in a very small way reduce that. And it also links back to my wildlife and wolf advocacy because, again, in a very small way, I'm helping to protect their habitats and their environment by one less piece of clothing in a landfill. I think a lot of people today have not found their purpose. And it actually makes me very sad because I believe everyone has gifts to give. And it's just a matter of either they don't feel like they can or no one's ever encouraged them. Maybe they feel like life is overwhelming just with the basics, that they couldn't possibly take on something. And I think also today, we're just bombarded with so many messages, news, and social media that it all can feel very heavy and overwhelming. And I think those things can actually prevent someone from stepping out of their comfort zone. Because when there's chaos all around us, what do we want to do? I want to get in the womb. I want to put on my big comfy sweater and cuddle with my dogs and, feel like everything's going to be okay. But you can actually, there's some things you can't control, but I do believe that by taking small steps in a positive direction to create change that positively impacts you or others, and whatever those others are to you, children, women, Native Americans, animals, wildlife, domestic violence, whatever it is that moves your heart, even just something as simple as starting to volunteer somewhere, makes a huge difference to them, but also makes a huge difference to you. Why? Because you start to feel like I am making an impact. I can't control all this over here, but here is where I can make a positive difference in this person or this animal's life, right? And guess what? It's making a difference in mine. And I think as you start to see the results of your efforts, you want to do more, right? You want to do more, you want to help more, you want to stand up more. You want to take that stand, you want to put the stake in the ground, you want to say, I stand for something. And there's nothing more powerful than that. But I think in the beginning, it needs someone to say, it's okay, give it a try. It's okay, step out of your comfort zone. If you fall, if you falter, I'm here. I'll pick you up, I'll help you. And I'm not sure that we all have that. I'm lucky enough to have a network of family and friends that do that for me, and I do for them. And I think that we should all just be aware of the women around us, right? And if you see someone faltering or you see someone not using their gifts, reach out, ask them, help them. What can you do? Encourage them, to take that first step. And honestly, I really feel like the world would be a completely different place if we could all just embrace our purpose, whatever that is, and start living in that direction. Having the courage to also be to stand up. So So I am very protective of communities that are marginalized or persecuted. And in particular, there was this incident at Starbucks recently. Well, it was actually about 6 months ago, and I don't know if this is relevant or not. But what happened is there was an incident in the parking lot of Starbucks, and at first I thought the two people were playing around, but it actually was a man beating on a young man. There were other people there, and they did nothing. And I immediately jumped out of my car with my phone. I didn't even have it on, but you're holding a phone these days is a very powerful tool. And come to find out, it was this young man, trans, and his boyfriend, I guess, very violent, and was beating him up. And I immediately ran over and inserted myself into the situation, and I didn't even think twice about it. And maybe that wasn't the smartest thing, but I immediately react when I see that someone is struggling, that someone is being beaten on, that someone is, being made to feel less than what they are. And so the violent person ran away, and the young man, and I said, look, you're 18, your whole life is starting. You deserve better than this. Take it from someone who's been around the sun a few times. You deserve better for this, and I want better for you, And so I think it doesn't have to be that extreme of an example. And I know we all have to find our own path, and we have to make our own mistakes, but there is some wisdom to take away with that I hope that we can transfer to others. We've been there, whether it's the dark, deep hole or the amazing highs. We've been there, and let us help you also experience those things and help you through them. So I feel by living my purpose, it has positively impacted the people around me. Going back, as I worked at the Humane Society of Sedona here for a while, and there was a lot of judgment against people who surrendered their animals or were adopting animals. And I started talking in a way that said, we shouldn't make assumptions about people. We shouldn't judge people. We don't know their story. We haven't walked in their shoes. And so I actually had a woman come up to me afterwards. I'd been there maybe 6 months. And she said, you've completely changed my perspective on how to approach people who come into our shelter. And that made me feel, full, right? Fulfilled. And I actually wrote an article, too, for the Red Rock News. And at the time, the owner called me and said, this was an incredible piece that you wrote. And it was about that. It was about, let's not judge, let's not assume. Let's give people some grace and patience. And that is how I live. And so I have my very close friends. My friend in LA that I've been friends with for 27 years, she calls me the badass. I don't think I'm a badass. I think I just say, look, this is wrong and we need to change it. Or this can impact the world in a positive way. Let's do it, right? And I feel like I do these projects, and once I'm done and I move on to the next one. So, the advocacy work and the film, and now I'm with the store, and I hope I'm here for a very long time. But it's the encouragement of them saying, you changed me just by being you, right? You're running and leaping off those cliffs. You don't know anything about running a consignment store, and here you are running a consignment store. And I have women come in all the time, and they say, I can't believe what you've done here. Feels so good. This is their escape. This is where they come to have fun. Fashion is fun, And so that makes me feel so good that in just the smallest way I've impacted people. Women come in here of all shapes and sizes and ages, right? And there was a woman in here, and she was having a challenging time with what she felt her body looked like in the moment. And I said, you don't get to do that here. Okay, there's no self-deprecation in my store. Everyone is beautiful. Let us help you find, right? I know you're beautiful in here. So what's going to help you feel beautiful out here? How do we pull that? How do we pull you out and put it? And she was She got a little emotional and she ended up leaving. She wasn't ready. And that's okay. That's okay. But her friend came in a couple of weeks later and said, I don't know what you said to her, but it has completely changed her life and how she thinks about herself. And come to find out, she'd been going through an incredible, challenging divorce and some other things. And of course, your self-esteem is going to bottom out with something like that. And here's a stranger saying, I see you. I see you. You're a very beautiful person. If everyone was living their purpose, this world would be so full of love and kindness and community and connection and grace and patience. Because when you're living with purpose, it's your journey, and it's sometimes going to be really hard, right? And sometimes it's going to be amazing. Hopefully most times amazing. And then that just comes out of you, right? That's just, you can't help it. You're living up here, right? Because your heart is full, And when you're living up here, you can't feel fear, jealousy, hate, racism, none of that, right? Because your heart's here, because you're living your life with purpose. And if we could all be doing that, I'm getting emotional again, I think the world would be such a different place because of it. And that is what I hope through my efforts, leading by example. Yeah, I'm going to fall flat on my face sometimes, but that's okay, because we get up and we try again, And if women in particular could understand it's okay to fall flat on your face and get back up again because you are moving in the direction that your heart tells you to move in, you're going to be okay. You're going to be better than okay. And everyone around you is going to see that, and then they're going to start to rise as well. And to me, that is the most beautiful thought, because honestly, that's what we need right now. There's a great quote from Ted Lasso. What does this situation need right now? And it needs more people living their purpose so that they feel fulfilled, that they help the people around them, that they're living at this level, right? And it just brings everyone together, and they feel good about what they're doing, and they're impacting positively others because of what they're doing. Some people, they're being impacted positively. They don't even know that they're doing it because they're just living their life as their true self. It's hard to be asked what is one final thing that I could, or something I could share to the world. I'm not perfect, far from it. And I know that, but I keep trying. I get up and I keep trying, And I think it's really important not to compare yourself to others, and to just continue to move forward in the direction that's right for you. And I've come to grips that sometimes I'll never be a multimillionaire, I'll never be this, I'll never be that, but that's okay. You know why? Because I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm doing exactly what I love to do. And I think if we could all just remember that, it's okay to fail. It's okay to not be the same as everyone else. Don't compare yourself to others. Follow your dream, your passion. I think that's the best advice that I could give.